Welcome back everyone, and get ready because today we're diving into one of the most astonishing, unbelievable, and captivating stories in the entire world of rare coins, a story that pulls you in from the very first second because we're talking about a humble little copper coin, a 1975 1-cent piece, that has captured the imagination of collectors everywhere due to rumors, discoveries, and speculative excitement that suggest that in the right circumstances, with the right combination of errors, mistakes, and rare minting anomalies, this seemingly ordinary Denver-minted penny could command an unbelievable price of $75 million, transforming an everyday pocket change coin into the kind of treasure that collectors dream about their entire lives. And in today's video we're digging deep into how such an extraordinary value is even possible, exploring the errors and varieties, the accidental mistakes and minting quirks, the historical context and production environment of the Denver Mint in the mid-1970s, and all the fascinating possibilities that could elevate a small, simple 1-cent piece into the realm of priceless numismatic art. And as we go through this story, I want you to imagine holding a coin that looks like every other penny you've ever seen but carries with it a hidden secret, a secret only visible to the trained eye, a secret capable of rewriting your financial fortunes, because that is exactly the kind of mythology and excitement that surrounds the idea of a 1975 penny being worth $75 million, and to understand how these miraculous valuations even enter the conversation, we must begin with the basics, starting with the fact that 1975 was a year with no major special issues for Lincoln cents, no big commemorations, no transitions in metal composition, no dramatic overhauls of minting technology. And yet it is precisely within the routine, everyday minting periods that some of the most spectacular mistakes in history have occurred, because the more mundane the mint environment, the more unnoticed a catastrophic or fascinating anomaly can be. And so our journey begins in the Denver Mint, a facility known for its high volume and rapid production pace, a place where millions upon millions of coins rush through presses, dies, feeders, and quality control stations, and whenever human oversight, machine fatigue, or die degradation enters the picture, that's where the magic of errors is born. The kind of errors that, if extreme enough, bold enough, unique enough, can transform a penny into a multi-million-dollar rarity. And among the most important categories of errors that collectors look for are dramatic off-center strikes where the design slips entirely out of alignment because a blank planchet isn't properly seated in the striking chamber, and when this occurs to a significant degree, especially 50% or more off-center while still leaving the date and mint mark visible, the value skyrockets. And if something like that happened on a 1975 penny in a uniquely identifiable way, say with an unusually clean strike despite the misalignment, or with a doubled impression of the portrait overlapping the blank area, it could immediately draw worldwide attention. But off-center strikes alone wouldn't push a penny into the realm of $75 million unless combined with something exceptionally rare, like a multi-strike error where the coin is struck 2, 3, or even 4 times in different directions because it jammed in the press and then rotated or slipped before the machine applied another blow, creating a layered, kaleidoscope-style distortion of Lincoln's portrait and the surrounding lettering. And if a 1975 example surfaced showing multiple crisp strikes with readable dates in overlapping arcs, that could produce the kind of numismatic shockwaves that auction houses dream of. And speaking of shockwaves, another legendary category of errors involves wrong planchet strikes, the kind of mint mistake where a coin is accidentally struck on a metal blank intended for a completely different denomination, like when a penny is struck on a dime planchet, a rare and exciting anomaly that creates a thinner, lighter coin missing parts of its design because the smaller metal piece can't hold the full impression. And now imagine the unlikely but enormously valuable scenario where a 1975 penny was struck on something even more exotic, like a foreign coin planchet that happened to be circulating in the mint's material supply, or on a leftover blank used for experimental testing purposes, something made of a metal not normally associated with 1-cent pieces, giving it a distinctive color, weight, or ring. And if a coin like that actually appeared, authenticated by leading graders as a genuine mint error, the bidding war could push into the tens of millions, as collectors love nothing more than a once-in-a-century anomaly. And the Denver Mint in the mid-1970s did indeed produce coins for foreign governments at various points, meaning that the idea of a stray planchet slipping into the production line isn't entirely impossible, and this possibility alone fuels speculation about the enormous value such a coin could command. But we must also consider die errors, those strange and dramatic flaws that occur when the very dies used to strike coins are damaged or improperly prepared, leading to things like double dies where elements of the design appear twice in a staggered fashion, creating bold doubling in the date, the mint mark, the motto, or Lincoln's portrait, and double dies are among the most beloved and valuable errors in the world of pennies. Just consider the legendary 1955 double die, which became one of the most iconic American error coins of all time, and now imagine the shock of discovering a 1975 D double die with doubling even more dramatic, crisp, and unmistakable than the most famous examples in history, doubling so intense that it appears almost holographic, capturing both the charm of the 1970s-era minting process and the high-stakes drama of major mint mistakes. And such a discovery, especially if unique, could justify enormous auction prices, because rarity plus dramatic visual appeal equals massive collector demand. And another angle of intrigue comes from die caps. Those extraordinary errors formed when a struck coin sticks to the upper die and continues striking subsequent planches, shaping the upper coin into a deep, metal thimble-like cap while imprinting distorted images onto the coins beneath it. And if a 1975's D penny ever surfaced as a full die cap in pristine condition with a visible mint mark and date, that alone could fetch staggering prices, especially since die caps from that era are extremely scarce. And then we consider broad strikes, uncentered broad strikes, double denominations, triple strikes, brocages, partial brocages, indent errors, feeder, finger strikes, and countless other strange minting mishaps that can transform an ordinary penny into a historic mint anomaly unlike anything else ever produced, each one representing a tiny step closer to the mythical multi-million-dollar valuation that collectors whisper about when discussing the rarest errors. But to reach the astonishing figure of $75 million, the coin would likely need to possess a combination of these errors in a way that no other coin in history has achieved, something like a coin struck on the wrong planchet, then misaligned, then double-struck, then exhibiting a dramatic die break across Lincoln's face. And while such a perfect storm seems almost impossible, collectors know that the mint has produced stranger surprises over the decades, surprises that linger in personal collections for years before being discovered by heirs or dealers. And this is why every coin enthusiast, metal detectorist, flea market treasure hunter, or everyday pocket change checker continues examining their pennies with hopeful curiosity, because the possibility, however slim, always exists that an overlooked minting blunder from decades ago could be sitting quietly in a jar or drawer, waiting to stun the world. And when discussing a hypothetical value as massive as $75 million, it's also important to consider the role of uniqueness, because in numismatics, the concept of unique one-of-one artifacts drives the most intense competition. And if a 1975 D penny were proven to be the only known example of a spectacular error, authenticated by top grading companies, certified, encapsulated, admired for impossibly dramatic characteristics, and backed by impeccable provenance, then high-end collectors and wealthy investors could absolutely plunge into a bidding frenzy, especially because the world of ultra-wealthy coin collecting has grown rapidly, with millionaires and billionaires competing for trophy pieces that represent both history and art. And while some may say that the notion of a 1975 D penny achieving a value of $75 million stretches beyond imagination, history shows that collectors routinely break price records for rare artifacts, often surpassing expectations. And the idea of a mint error becoming one of the most valuable coins ever sold isn't entirely impossible, particularly if new discoveries, publicity waves, or collector rivalries amplify its market profile. And then there's the undeniable thrill factor, the emotional pull that makes people fall in love with these stories, because what could be more exciting than the idea that a small, ordinary, unassuming penny minted nearly half a century ago could secretly hold millions in value simply because of a mistake, an accident that occurred in a fraction of a second on a minting press, an accident that transforms randomness into rarity, normalcy into treasure, and chance into fortune. And as collectors continue searching. Next! Today we're going to explore one of the most surprising and mind-bending stories in numismatics, a story that pulls you in with its mystery, its unexpected twists, its long-rumored value, and its astonishing errors and mistakes that collectors today believe could push a humble little 1985 1-cent coin into the realm of a staggering $24 million. And as we unravel this tale, prepare yourself for a deep and detailed look at how a coin so ordinary, so everyday, minted by the millions, could suddenly emerge as an extraordinary piece of rare American history with errors that defy logic, mistakes that could only have occurred in rare moments of minting chaos, and possibilities that collectors speculate about endlessly, creating a perfect storm of rarity, intrigue, and value that turns this 1985 cent into something far beyond just copper-coated zinc, because when we talk about rare pennies, we often think of coins from the early 20th century, wheat pennies, Indian heads, or coins with dramatic double dies like the famous 1955 cent. But the truth is that modern pennies, especially those minted during transitional production years like the mid-1980s, can hide some of the most unbelievable minting anomalies ever recorded, and when even one of those anomalies combines with condition, rarity, and collector demand, the price tag can skyrocket into the millions. And the 1985 1-cent coin, despite its simple appearance, sits at the center of one of the most intense numismatic discussions because of several rumored and documented errors that make it irresistible to experts, collectors, and treasure hunters. So let's begin by understanding the world this coin came from, a world where the US Mint was shifting materials, adjusting dies, experimenting with pressure settings, and dealing with worn equipment that sometimes produced coins with subtle imperfections, dramatic errors, and mysterious inconsistencies that now, decades later, fuel the legends surrounding special error strikes from the 1985 penny series, particularly those minted under unusual conditions. And while the standard 1985 penny is made from a zinc core with a thin copper plating, the era surrounding this year was filled with reports of coins struck on leftover copper planchets, coins struck using misaligned dies, coins struck off-center, coins with double dies that revealed ghost-like layers of letters, coins where the mint mark seemed to float or shift, and coins with weak strikes that produced odd surface textures. And even though the US Mint produced billions of pennies during this time, the sheer number does not prevent rarity, because mint errors are not about how many coins were made but how many were made incorrectly, how many slipped through unnoticed, and how many have survived in pristine condition without being scratched, bent, or circulated into destruction. And today, in the treasure hunting community, there are whispers about several categories of rare 1985 errors that could push the value beyond imagination, starting with the possibility that a very small number of 1985 pennies were struck on bronze planchets left over from pre-year 1983 production runs, a possibility that collectors speculate about because of transitional mixes that occurred in the early 1980s when the mint switched from copper alloys to zinc. And we know from other years that transitional errors sometimes slip into circulation, and if even one 1985 cent ended up being struck on a bronze planchet with its heavier weight, deeper tone, and distinct metallic resonance, it would instantly become one of the rarest mistakes of the decade, the kind of error that auctions would fight over, the kind of piece that climbs past six figures in early bidding and then leaps into seven-figure territory as collectors battle for ownership. And when you combine that possibility with other error types that appeared in the 1985 batches, such as dramatic off-center strikes where part of the design spills off the planchet or fails to be struck entirely, you begin to understand why this one year has grown into a hotbed of speculation where stories circulate about ultra-rare double-struck pieces, coins that were struck once, partially rejected, and then struck again in a misaligned position, creating overlapping images that collectors adore because each one is completely unique. And then there are rumors about 1985 pennies containing subtle double dies on the lettering of Liberty or the date, where the digits seem to shadow themselves, creating a lead effect caused by die instability, wear, or misalignment during production. And these double dies are particularly thrilling to collectors because they represent one of the most beloved and documented categories of mint errors and can push even the simplest penny into the thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions if the doubling is dramatic and the coin is preserved in high mint state condition. And speaking of condition, the value of any rare coin is magnified exponentially when the coin appears nearly flawless, and that's another reason why the idea of a $24 million 1985 penny becomes not just a fantasy but a compelling possibility in the world of ultra-high-grade specimens. Because imagine a coin struck with an error so dramatic, so rare, already one in millions, but then preserved in perfect or near-perfect condition for nearly 40 years, untouched, uncirculated, gleaming with original mint luster, and then authenticated and graded at the highest level by professional services. And once you understand that grading can push a rare error from 5 figures to 8 figures, you begin to see why collectors would attach astonishing speculative values to coins like these, because rarity becomes a multiplier, condition becomes a multiplier, and collector demand becomes an exponential force. And when all three multiply each other, you get explosive valuations. And beyond the more traditional errors like planchette mistakes, doubling, off-center strikes, and die cracks, there are even more unusual possibilities in the world of 1985 pennies, such as coins struck using foreign planchets because the US Mint occasionally assisted other countries with their coin production. And leftover foreign blanks in the machinery sometimes resulted in accidental strikes of US coins on metal types that belonged to other nations, creating hybrid pieces that today are incredibly valuable and sought after by specialists, because these coins tell a story of cross-minting confusion, where a coin might carry the diameter or weight of a foreign currency but the design of a United States 1-cent piece, and if even one such coin exists from 1985, it would be considered a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, the type of treasure whose value could soar into tens of millions simply because no second example may ever surface. And then we must consider mechanical errors such as die breaks, which occur when a die becomes cracked or damaged during production, causing raised lines or blobs of metal to appear on the coins it strikes. And while die cracks are not always valuable, dramatic ones such as full cuts where entire sections of the design are missing create visually stunning errors that collectors obsess over. And when they occur on a year like 1985 where error documentation is already sparse and speculation is high, such coins can command prices far beyond traditional expectations, and another layer of speculation surrounds possible mint mark variations, because although 1985 pennies were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, the potential misplacement, distortion, or weakening of a mint mark on certain pieces could create a category of rare varieties that collectors chase relentlessly. And some enthusiasts believe that unusual mint mark positioning on a tiny handful of 1985 Denver coins could indicate die polishing errors or hasty repunching. And whenever mint mark anomalies appear, even subtle ones, collectors pay close attention because they represent intentional or accidental modifications made at the mint level, distinguishing the coin from the billions of others produced that year. And then there are surface anomalies such as lamination errors, where peeling or flaking of the metal occurs due to bonding issues between the copper plating and zinc core. And these errors result in visually dramatic pieces where strips of metal lift or curl, creating unique patterns that no two coins share. And such errors, while sometimes subtle in modern coins, can be incredibly valuable when extreme, especially on coins where the lamination peel affects key areas like Lincoln's portrait or the date, adding another layer of rarity to an already intriguing year. And when we add all these categories of errors together and imagine the possibility of one single coin possessing multiple mistakes, such as a transitional planchette combined with off-center striking and doubling, or a foreign planchette error combined with a second strike, then the idea of a $24 million price tag becomes less like a rumor and more like a fascinating theoretical possibility, because coins like these become not just currency but historical artifacts, minted accidents frozen in time, survivors of chaotic minting moments that produce unrepeatable masterpieces of error. And numismatists understand that once-in-a-lifetime layered errors are the holy grail of collecting, driving collectors to bid relentlessly and push values higher with each auction round. Today, as we dive into another unbelievable story from the world of rare coins, a world where small pieces of metal can sometimes hide jaw-dropping secrets and life-changing value, and today we're exploring the 1968 D1-cent coin that collectors claim has skyrocketed to an astonishing value of $51 million because of a combination of errors, mistakes, and oddities that push it far beyond the boundaries of normal minting history, transforming a simple Denver minted penny into a legendary piece of numismatic mystery. And as we begin this deep journey into what makes this coin so extraordinary, we're going to explore every possibility, every theory, every minting mishap, and every strange detail that experts and enthusiasts point to when trying to understand how something so small and common could evolve into a multimillion-dollar treasure. Starting with the fact that the year 1968 itself was an era of transition and immense change for the United States Mint, a time when shifting technology, fluctuating demand, die maintenance issues, and rapid production schedules created conditions in which unusual mistakes had a higher chance of slipping through the cracks unnoticed, leading us to imagine how a coin minted in Denver could have emerged with a combination of factors so rare that only a single surviving piece is believed to exist, and that rarity is at the core of this coin's mind-boggling value, because even though billions of pennies were minted that year, the specific 1968 D1 cent that has become the centerpiece of legend seems to carry details so unusual that collectors describe it as possessing a perfect storm of errors, starting with the strong possibility of a double die obverse, a type of error known for creating doubled letters, distorted inscriptions, and a shadow-like effect that can make the lettering appear as if it was struck twice, something often caused by misalignment in the die creation process. And if this rare double die obverse, especially one that is unusually bold, were present on the coin, it alone could drastically increase its worth, but in the case of this specific coin, experts speculate that the doubling might not be the only factor, because another suspected error is the presence of a mispunched mint mark, where the D mint mark may have been applied by hand slightly off target, a common issue in earlier decades but one that can become extremely valuable when combined with other major errors, especially when the mint mark appears repunched, slanted, or layered with evidence of multiple impressions, and the idea of a repunched D on top of a doubled obverse creates a scenario where the coin has two independent high-value errors overlapping. But the story doesn't end there, because many collectors believe the coin also shows signs of an incorrect planchet error, meaning that instead of being struck on the typical copper alloy planchet used at the time, the coin might have been formed on a foreign or transitional metal blank, possibly one that slipped into Denver's production line by accident, and this type of mix-up is exceptionally rare, especially during the late 1960s when the mint was juggling multiple responsibilities, including producing overseas coinage for foreign governments, increasing the risk that leftover blanks in unusual metals could be accidentally fed into presses intended for US currency, and if this 1968 D penny truly was struck on a foreign planchet, perhaps aluminum, brass, bronze of a different composition, or even a thinner or thicker blank, its weight, color, and overall feel would stand out dramatically to anyone who examined it closely, giving it another layer of rarity that would add millions to its hypothetical value. And as collectors study the possibilities, they also point to the condition of the coin as yet another contributing factor. Because if the coin somehow escaped into circulation only briefly or perhaps not at all and remained preserved in near-perfect condition with a brilliant, sharp strike that captures every detail with clarity, then the combination of a pristine grade and multiple overlapping errors becomes almost unimaginably rare, and rarity is the lifeblood of value in numismatics, especially when a coin's existence seems almost accidental, as if it were never meant to survive. And the theories don't stop there, because some numismatists believe the coin may exhibit a die clash error as well, where the obverse and reverse die struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like images of Lincoln's silhouette or the memorial building faintly imprinted onto the opposite side. And when die clash marks appear alongside major doubling and a repunched mint mark, the result becomes a layered tapestry of mistakes that tell the story of a chaotic moment inside a minting facility, a moment when machinery misaligned, metal shifted, pressures varied, and a single coin slipped through with a combination of anomalies so rare that no other specimen like it has ever been confirmed, and collectors love to imagine what must have happened inside the Denver Mint on the day this coin was struck, perhaps a tired technician adjusting equipment, perhaps miscalibrated machinery running too quickly, perhaps dies that were near the end of their life cycle creating distortions during the strike, or perhaps a combination of human error and mechanical stress producing something that defied expectation. And this mystery adds to the coin's allure, because people are naturally drawn to items with stories, especially stories rooted in historical mishaps that leave behind tangible evidence of a moment frozen in time, and this fuels the imaginations of collectors who argue that the coin's value isn't just about metal, rarity, or errors, but about the narrative surrounding its creation. A narrative filled with speculation about how such a piece survived undetected for decades before. finally resurfacing in the hands of someone who recognized its extraordinary details, and the excitement surrounding such a discovery inspires more people to search their old jars, attic boxes, inherited coin collections, and forgotten stashes of pennies in the hopes of finding something equally rare, although the chances are astronomically low, because a coin like the rumored $51 million 1968 D penny is likely one of a kind, making it a centerpiece of numismatic fantasy and discussion. And as we consider all these possibilities, it's worth diving deeper into each era type one by one, imagining how the double-die obverse might present itself on this unique specimen with its doubled lettering on the word liberty, its shadowed appearance on the date, its distorted contours on the motto, giving the coin an almost three-dimensional effect, while the repunched mint mark could appear layered, with 2 or 3 visible impressions of the D marking the spot where a mint worker manually applied the letter more than once, something that seems minor but is actually a window into the manual processes of earlier decades, and when combined with unusual planchette composition, the coin could weigh slightly differently than standard pennies of the time, perhaps just enough to draw the attention of someone who put it on a scale out of curiosity, sparking interest and leading to further examination. And this snowballs into the theories of die polishing lines that might streak across the surface in subtle patterns, the kinds of lines that show the die was heavily polished either due to wear or an attempt to remove imperfections, creating a unique texture that adds to the coin's personality, and some collectors even speculate that the coin may include a broad strike or off-center strike component, another rare error where the coin is struck without being perfectly seated in the collar, causing its rim to expand outward or shift slightly off balance, adding yet another layer of rarity that would amplify its already staggering value. And as we continue exploring the possibilities, we consider how the Denver Mint in the late 60s was working under pressure as coin demand grew across the country due to population increases, economic activity, and growing commercial circulation, which means the machinery was operating continuously, increasing the chances that overused dies, worn presses, and fatigued workers might contribute to the creation of error coins. And the presence of multiple overlapping errors on a single 1968 D penny suggests an incredibly rare confluence of circumstances, the kind collectors dream about, and when you combine all of this with the speculative nature of high-value coin rumors, the story takes on a larger-than-life quality, where the coin becomes a symbol of the limitless possibilities hidden in ordinary pocket change, inspiring collectors to search endlessly for hidden gems. And when such a coin becomes the subject of viral stories, discussions, and debates, its value is driven even higher by the attention, curiosity, and fascination surrounding it, because numismatics isn't just about rarity, metal composition, and errors, but also about passion, demand, and the mythos that builds around certain coins. And this 1968 D penny has become one of those mythical pieces, a coin that ignites imaginations, fuels debates, and pushes people to dream about that one incredible find that could change everything. And as our discussion continues, turning over every angle, every possibility, every technical detail, every minting scenario, every story of discovery, and every collector's fantasy, the legend of this coin grows even more incredible, wrapping itself in layers of what ifs and could biz, building the sense of wonder that makes rare coins so captivating. And as we arrive at the end of this long exploration of the $51 million 1968 D penny,